Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Up next, upset alert. Let's talk. The Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns face off Sunday, 1 p.m. in Baltimore. And some of us would have thought coming into this season that this matchup would have been one of those games we just chalk up as a win and we start preparing for week 3. But I have a lot of respect for the Cleveland Browns, and I have even more respect for them after the performance they put on offensively and defensively last week. No, they did not get a win. Part of that is because of poor quarterback play. But defensively, they were lights out, holding the quote-unquote great Joe Burrow to, I think it was 113 yards, only 1 touchdown, and he was sacked 3 times, and holding the Bengals offense, I think, under 60 yards rushing. So it was not a real good day for the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Now, does that mean that the Cleveland Browns defense is that kind of elite? Well, maybe, and it's quite possible, because you got to think the Browns defense are healthy. You know, when you get into a week 6 or a week 7 matchup and you got a long injury report, those kind of become advantages for a team. But as of right now, the Browns are healthy, and the performance they put on last week from front to back, specifically defensively, was pretty admirable. And then on top of that, you had Joe Flacco hit the Bengals up for 290 yards passing. And so is this the kind of team that could stroll into Baltimore and upset the Ravens? I think so. And I think so because what we saw last week was an offense, that being the Ravens offense, that was explosive. If I remember correctly, I hadn't pulled any stats, none of that. But if I remember correctly, they had at least 5 plays over 20 yards. Pretty explosive performance. And I don't think we're going to see that kind of explosion this week. I just don't. We do have the ultimate quarterback in Lamar Jackson who can get out of harm's way. I think he will need that escapability at a high level this week. I think this offensive line for the Baltimore Ravens did not perform well, specifically on the right side, that being Falele and Roger Rosengarten. I thought the left side played solid, or from Linderbaum over to Ronnie Stanley, I thought they played solid. Not great, but solid. But now you have the great Myles Garrett, the best pass rusher in the league, coming into town. And we understand that he's always caused the Baltimore Ravens some trouble when they faced off. Well, he comes in with a new collection of talent running along beside him. The linebacking group for this defense, that being Cleveland, is good, and the back end is solid as well. And they are going to come in confident off their performance from last week. And so I think that we're going to have maybe not as a dismal day as the Cincinnati Bengals did, but I don't think this is going to be high scoring. I think this is going to be the type of game that we're going to grind it out. That doesn't mean we won't have some explosion. It doesn't mean we won't hit something for 20 or 30 yards. I just mean it's going to be less of those plays and more 6 yards, 8 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, no yards. 8 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 2 yards. That's going to be the kind of game that it is. If it happens any other way than that for the Baltimore Ravens, specifically offensively, I will be absolutely shocked. Let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens defense against this Cleveland Browns offense. The Baltimore Ravens defense, I think the only real advantage we have coming into this game is the interior defensive line, who I thought played okay to above average last week. I thought Broderick Washington played well. I thought Meta BK played solid. I thought Travis Jones played okay for the most part. And I thought the mixing and matching along that defensive front was not good. I thought it was kind of confusion for the most part. But holistically, I thought the interior line played well. And so I think that could be one of the advantages, because the Cincinnati Bengals did hold this team to less than 60 yards rushing. Here's the problem. Joe Flacco went for 290 last week, as you heard me mention earlier. And so he's always been a guy who's been confident in his arm, and his arm is still live. He still can throw the ball deep. And there was nothing that we seen from no cornerback last week that should give us any type of confidence. Joe Flacco has the potential, just like last week, to give us a couple of interceptions. The question is, which I think will be the greater factor in this game, we'll talk about it later in Keys to Victory this week, but I think it's going to be the greater factor in this game is, will we take those interceptions? There was about 2 or 3 interceptions last week that we could have had. Kyle Hamilton could have had 2, and I think Chidobe Awuzie almost came up with 1, but we ended up with none, which I think was a factor in the game, of course. And so Joe Flacco is going to give us 2-3 opportunities. Will we take advantage of those opportunities Joe Flacco gives us? I think Jerry Jeudy is going to show up. I think he's going to be one of their primetime performers. And what I saw from last week from the Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco is that he wasn't targeting just Jerry Jeudy. It was that 290 passing yards. That was full distribution. There was about 6-7 guys who got the ball last week, maybe even 8 guys. The leading receiver was Jerry Jeudy, and then the second leading receiver was the running back, Sampson. And so we know that we have trouble with a back who is a good receiver. And so that's going to be one of the concerns, right? I think in order for us to really make our imprint on this game, I think it's going to have to be from the defense side of the ball. I don't want it to be totally on the offense, because I know that that's what we have a tendency to do, is we tend to lean on Lamar Jackson as a fan base, as an organization, as a coaching staff. And sometimes it's too much, not too much for him to handle, because he's come through time and time again. But I think in a game like this, where the defense he's going to be facing is going to be stout, it's going to need to be our defense that steps up, gets some sacks, get some takeaways, so that we have multiple opportunities to score some points. That's what let Cleveland down last week. Actually, 2 things let Cleveland down last week against the Bengals. Their defense played elite, but the kicking game, or special teams, I might say, wasn't good last week for the Browns. You can't expect them to be that bad again. And then the other thing was they didn't get any takeaways off of Joe Burrow. And so I think we have to protect the ball for sure offensively, but I think we also have to be able to take the ball away. I think it can't be a situation where Joe Flacco is just able to dink and dunk and then go deep a time or 2 and put up some points. Because if the Browns offense gains confidence, I think things could unravel very quickly for the Baltimore Ravens. Again, I don't have a lack of confidence in what they can be, but last week, specifically defensively, was some undoing for me when I thought about them being able to get to the Super Bowl and win the whole thing. The Baltimore Ravens, I'm not considering this a bounce back game. This is a must-win game. The Baltimore Ravens cannot afford to go 0-2 in the AFC, and they cannot afford to go down 0-1 in the division, especially with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh already having wins on their record. Because if they lose this game, they end up in a very similar situation that they were in last season, and that's chasing somebody else for the division all year long. And like I've said before, with the level of schedule that we have, that may be a chase that we don't catch up with this season. So listen, you guys let me know what you guys want me to know about this matchup, and I got some more commentary coming to you this week. So man, I appreciate you guys for hanging with me. Hit like and subscribe if you've been here this long. And until next time, I'm out.